Buzz Lightyear mission log, stardate 3901. After a full year of being marooned, our first hyperspeed test flight is a go.
Who are you talking to?
No one.
You were narrating again.
I was not. Just doing the mission log.
You do know no one ever listens to this.
I know that. Narrating helps me focus.
There's so much of you that I feel like I saw when I was watching the movie, like Buzz's relationship with socks. I couldn't help but think of like you and your relationship with your dog,
That's
Dodger.
right, yeah.
And your voice is so perfectly his.
Oh,
I was talking to the filmmakers and they were saying that your voice work on Snowpiercer actually really impressed them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's what it was, huh?
And I feel like as Buzz fans, we've heard Tim Allen's version, Patrick
Sure.
Warburton's version in the cartoon. How did you craft Buzz's voice?
Well, I mean, you certainly have to use Tim Allen as the blueprint. The character itself is supposed to be what the toy was based off of. So you'd be a fool to not use Tim's work as a blueprint, aside from just the fact that he was fantastic in the role.
Right.
So he certainly was in my mind. I think the first session I was just doing a shameless Tim Allen impression, because again, it's big shoes to fill, and it's scary to try and think about coloring outside the lines. But eventually you're able to find some nuance that you can make that's just your own.
You killed it. Did you listen to anything? Like, would you listen to Tim's voice back, or?
I mean, I watched all the Lightyear movies, or the Toy Story movies. You know, not only had I seen them already, but certainly before every session, you watch them again, and even just every Pixar movie, because you know, when you're in the booth and you're trying to bring a certain level of truth and authenticity to delivery, and then you listen to it back, and it would almost feel flat at times, and you realize this is the one string you can play on is your voice. You have more freedom to add more color. You know, just put a little extra sauce on it. So eventually, by the second or third session, you realize, you know what? I'm just going to give you everything. I'm going to do some way up here. I'm going to do some down here and up here, and you guys figure it out later. But you realize that you're allowed to take more risk.
Well, you killed it.
Oh,
Sauce
thanks.
worked. It's also wild because I know as a kid it was your dream to be a Disney animator.
Yeah.
And I remember you posted a picture on Mother's Day and you had like a Mickey Mouse on your shirt. And I was like, he totally manifested this, because I was reading that you were giving the animators or you were giving people pep talks. You were in the animation dailies.
Yeah, Angus was so sweet. He let me sit in on one of the animation sessions where, you know, you have all these amazing animators, and Angus will each animator has a little section to work on, and then Angus gives notes. But these notes are, I mean, they're acting notes. It's literally, you know, well, I think Buzz needs to, you know, look quicker, and then, I mean, I've said in a few interviews so far, Pixar is so good at eyeball acting, you know, in non-animated films. Your eyes don't lie. You know, your eyes, it's where you can tell whether or not you're thinking. And Pixar movies, I've seen moments where the character, you know, the eyes will flick left and right as it's searching for thought, giving incredible depth and authenticity. That's a choice by an animator. These animators are true artists, and watching the meticulous attention to detail that goes into it was just really fascinating, and I was a little jealous.
Yeah, it's so cool though that you spent so much of your time like learning all this stuff because you're such a fan. I know.
I love it.
It's super cool because I also saw that you met with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
That's right, yeah.
So I wanted to know, would you ever play Buzz Lightyear in a live action?
God, wouldn't that be good?
Wouldn't that be cool?
Wouldn't that be fun?
Would you?
Oh my God, that gets a little meta though, doesn't it? That we start really overlapping. I'm not sure. I think if it went live action, they almost have to kind of wipe the slate clean and start fresh. Maybe get a brand new person in there.
You wouldn't want to do it.
I mean, look, if they want to come to me, I probably wouldn't say no. I wouldn't be able to, but I think I understand enough to know that it might need some fresh blood.
All right. Well, I would love to see you in the role. I feel like you are
thank you.
so much Buzz Lightyear. And what really hit home for me as someone who like struggles with perfectionism was sort of this message that it's like okay to make a mistake. And I'm like, when did we decide that it's like not okay to make mistakes, right? Like it's so crazy.
Yeah.
How do you handle making mistakes, and what advice do you have to people when it comes to overcoming that?
I mean, I'm sure I'm like everyone. I beat myself up a little bit, but I think, you know, if you are able to move past the mistake, I think that's where there's the most opportunity for growth. So once you actually have a good experience with that kind of shift and that kind of evolution, I think it opens your eyes to the realization that the the mistakes are what make us human. And it's not about whether or not we make the mistakes. It's about how we move through them and what we take away from them and how we become better people as a result of them.
Yeah. Did you feel that sort of when you were like saying some of Buzz's lines?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's a lot of Buzz's story that resonates with me that I can identify with. So absolutely.
Yeah. On RottenTomatoes.com, we are having a Pixar showdown right now where we're having our users vote for their favorite Pixar film. So aside from Lightyear, which is obviously like number one, what do you think should have the top spot?
The Incredibles.
Why?
It's a perfect movie. It's just a perfect movie. I mean, I'm a huge Craig T. Nelson fan. I just think it's just a perfectly balanced, structured movie. Everything is just everything from the directorial choices. I think Brad Bird is a genius. To me, it's a perfect movie, and it's easily my favorite Pixar movie.
I love that. The last thing I wanted to ask you is I feel like when you look at like your body of work, whether it's like Fantastic Four or Captain America or Lightyear, you're sort of always like drawn, Chris, to these heroic roles. What do you think that's about? Like, why do you think you're drawn to all these roles, and how do you tap into sort of that like heroic side that all of us like have inside of us?
Well, it's not that those are the roles that I just, it wasn't by design that you just say, I only want to play heroes. It's just kind of, that's what I end up playing. I'm not sure. I mean, even a hero is full of flaws. I mean, that's what makes them interesting to watch. I think without flaw. I think Julianne Moore once said, the audience doesn't come to see you, they come to see themselves. So even in the heroes you play, they have to have flaw. They have to have things that make them human. That's why we choose to watch them. So again, it's not that I'm choosing to play heroes, it just so happens to be that way. But I would argue that even the heroes I play are still incredibly human.
Ready, Captain Lightyear?
Ready as I'll ever be, Commander Hawthorne.
This is exciting. A new adventure.
I'm gonna grant you 4 minutes to be off planet, but then you come right back to us. To infinity
and beyond.
Uzo, Keke, congratulations on this movie. I mean, what an epic space adventure. It made me want to ask you, like, would you guys be down to go to space? And how do you think you would fare as like a space ranger?
Haha. Totally down for space. Not so sure I'm signing up for Space Ranger.
Okay.
I'm there like as the tourist, watching out the window, enjoying somebody's guiding me through it. That's my experience.
Yes, I need to be 100% secured. They need to have done at least 1,000 trips before I go on mine. And absolutely no on the Space Ranger. I'm with Izzy on the whole, like, it's too much space in the space.
Yeah.
Space. So I'm good inside of something within that.
That's hilarious. I also feel like we're not too far from like being tourists in space.
100%.
Like so wild to think about. It's so cool that you guys play granddaughter and grandmother in this. Like, did you get to listen to each other's recordings or exchange notes before you guys started
I
recording?
didn't. I don't know if anybody else did. I didn't, but I definitely got to see, images of Izzy and what that would look like, and I saw Alicia and I knew what the story was. So the entirety of the experience was really thinking about like everything is going forward. This is who this is our hero.
Yes.
I
mean, there's so many takeaways, and I think that's the biggest thing for me too with Izzy character and Alicia, and just all of what that means in this story is that this is the future. That feeling was very much so apparent. And then I was gonna say, only in animation would she be able to be my grandmama. Every time we say that out loud, it cracks me up because I'm like, of course, in animation, that's what you can do.
Yeah. Right. Facts. It's so true. Do you guys feel like family now? Because I feel it feels like that, like just sitting across from you guys.
I mean, I feel that way just loving her as an entertainer in the industry and seeing everything that she's been able to do. I feel like, yes, my girl. When I see her, I'm like, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I mean, I feel like that way regardless. So glad we finally got to do something together. Now we need to also do a live action.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Drama, comedy.
Come on, drama.
Something.
Let's get the girls to cry a little bit.
Yes.
Let's get a Lightyear live action.
Ooh.
We're ready.
Would you be down for that?
Girl,
Why not?
yes.
Yes.
That'd be amazing. Just not in actual space, though.
For sure.
Yes.
We're still guests.
There you go. But you guys kill it because you say one of the most famous catchphrases in all of Pixar, to infinity and beyond. How many times did you practice saying that?
I don't even know if I said it out loud. The first time when I read it, I was like, no way that I'm really going to get to say that. And then when we were in the booth, and I said it for the first time, I lost my mind.
Yeah.
I genuinely was like started jumping up and down, and I was like so excited. I'm positive that take is not usable. Like that was like just something I was so excited about. It's amazing.
I think that I don't think you realize how much things have impacted you until you do it. So same thing for me. As soon as I said to infinity and beyond in the recording studio, I'm like, yo, I just said to infinity and beyond. So then it hits you like what that really means to you. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy.
What does it mean to you?
I think it means what a lot of what Uzo's been saying is that it's the future. It's the beyond. It's that there's more. Sky's not the limit, especially with a character like Izzy Hawthorne and Alicia Hawthorne being able to be a part of Lightyear. That's what it means. To infinity and beyond. We all deserve to shine and be seen in this way and in this light.
Yeah, and what used to be big maybe isn't so big anymore. Now you're saying to infinity and beyond. Yeah,
Okay.
Both of your careers are just, it's really been such a joy to watch. Another joy for me to watch in this movie, though, was obviously the themes in Pixar. Like, I can't not walk into a Pixar movie and not cry. As I've struggled with perfectionism a lot in my life, and I feel like making mistakes was just so beautifully reminded that it's okay to do. What did that mean to you guys, the theme of this film?
I think that theme is very powerful. I think it was a movie that was creating space for those mistakes to live, that those mistakes aren't setbacks, that they aren't interruptions to everything that you ever strive for. It's actually an opportunity for you to progress, for you to learn something, that, to give yourself a little room and a little bit of the same grace that you would give another person. Right. And that, I don't even know if there's such a thing as mistakes, really, even as much as it's just the course that was already sort of set for you. And I love that this movie was tackling that. I love that this movie chose to have Buzz even confront life and his own, our own, we can sometimes be our own worst enemy.
Oh my gosh,
yes.
That metaphor was incredible.
Yeah.
And I love how that's something that we saw that Izzy learned from her grandmother, from Alicia's character, because that's what Alicia always was to Buzz since the beginning. He started to spend so much time away from her, life passing him by. But at the end of the day, when he, meets Izzy again, he's met with all those same messages that Izzy was instilled with, which is that give yourself grace. That's what being a leader is, because when you don't acknowledge, okay, you know what, I made a mistake, I can move forward, then you stop yourself from moving forward, which is what happens with Buzz. His inability to say it's okay that he made a mistake had him trapped in a just vicious cycle.
Yes. Right. And you said space. I'm like, that was the actual space in the movie if you think about it, which I love, right?
Pixar just
mind blown.
Levels.
I gotta ask you guys before I leave, on RottenTomatoes.com, we are hosting a Pixar showdown.
Oh.
So aside from Lightyear, which Pixar film do you think should be number one?
Wow, are y'all kidding me? That's
then I went to Finding Nemo in my head. Wait a second.
For me, because I'm just always on that mental health gag, which, I think it's like, I'm on a lot of things, but like, I'm screaming this to the rooftops, Inside Out, period, point blank. That one just, for me, especially when I saw it, I just felt like, I remember being in the theater with, I had some kids with me, but I felt like it was for me, and I'm like, I needed this. It was so good. So Inside Out for me.
Now, you know what? I'm actually calling an audible because I said Up before. You know which one I also loved? Soul.
Oh, yes. It was great. It was great.
That one.
That was deep.
Deep.
They go so deep. They go so deep.
They're not afraid of going there, which is the
no.
thing, and that's great.
We should have known when they said, let's do Hamlet but remix it. We should have known then that they was just going off on something.
All the way.
And what about you?
Well, I thought this was going to be like a fun boot camp workout thing. But it is not. Did I get it?
Pretty close.
I need you know what I'm saying, the harpoons?
Taika, I love seeing you lend your talents to Marvel, Star Wars, and now Pixar. Would you ever want to direct a Pixar film? What would a Taika Waititi Pixar film look like?
I would love to be involved in a Pixar film or direct one, but I'm just not sure if my brain could work that way. That takes a long time for these guys to make these films. And I was the first writer on Moana, and I was just watching the process of that and seeing how long that took to make that film. It was years, and I don't know if I've got that in me. I just don't know if I'd be focused. I think I'd probably just I just get distracted by something else, and that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, oh, a butterfly. Let me start a new project now. That's so funny. But I mean, you have so much going on, and you've done so much incredible voice work. Like your Korg in Thor, your IG-11 in Star Wars, your Mo in this. And I feel like all the roles are so cosmic. Like, what fascinates you about space? And would you ever want to go to space?
I do want to go to space. I'm a bit scared of. I mean, like Keke's character, I think I'm probably too freaked out at the prospect of drifting off like George Clooney into the void, and it's just that idea of being that lonely and out there and with no one else around us. It's just very scary to me. But I do love space, and I love watching space movies. It's actually one of my favorite genres, and yeah, that's yeah, I love space.
I love it. What do you do to get into state, Taika? Because like before I do an interview, I'll like meditate and stuff. Before you do voice work, like what are you doing? What are you listening to? Are you doing?
It's funny you
jumping
was
jacks?
mentioning the voice characters before, because I forgot about that. I actually have, yeah. IG-11, Korg, this guy. Here's the funny thing is that they're basically just my normal accent. I could have put on an American accent. I didn't really try that hard. I was just being myself, but with a different pitch. Korg talks up here like this, and this is Mo like this, and this is IG-11. Really, there's no. Is there a difference? It's a really great way of working, though. Like, and to get into that stuff, I think it's very different. It's very different to live action acting, or acting with your whole body and your face and everything, because you actually forget about your voice a lot when you're acting, and you're just like concerned with like, how do I look? What am I doing with my body? You're moving and stuff, and when you're in the booth just doing a character's voice, it's all you've got. And so like sometimes I'd be like, we're doing like multiple takes on just a simple line, and I didn't realize that I wasn't quite. There's so many ways to say words and to emote and to like get different meanings out of words, and it's just a whole new different way of working.
Yeah, there's only so many ways you can say like a writing utensil, without giving anything away.
Yeah, exactly. Pen. I'm got a pen. Want a pen? Actually, you know what? I did actually have to say that line quite a lot. Anyone want a pen? Anyone want a pen? You want a pen? Want a pen?
Well, you nailed it every single time, Taika. But like I said, I can't wait for the world to see you in this Pixar film. And actually at RottenTomatoes.com, we're hosting this Pixar Showdown on our website where users get to vote for their favorite Pixar film.
Up.
So I wanted to know, aside from Lightyear, which Pixar film do you think should have top spot?
Up.
Why?
It's for me. It's the most emotional film of theirs that I've seen. It's the one that speaks to me the most. I think the themes in it are, they're very clear and relatable, but also the idea of having the main character as an elderly man. You never see that. No one takes a risk. No one makes a movie about an old person, and that for me was like one of the things that made me think these guys are really like. They're not afraid of doing films like this. And also, one of the greatest things, it's not a spoiler because I hope everyone has seen Up, but the idea that in order for him to move forward in his life and for him to actually fly, he has to get rid of all of that stuff that he's been holding on to, all of his memories and and those 2 chairs are the last things that he has to get rid of so the house can fly. And it's such a great metaphor for life and how we should be living.
I love it. And every Pixar movie makes you, aside from like make you cry, it really, I feel like it's just like a lesson to adults. Like, hey, this is what you forgot as a kid. Remember this. And the one for Lightyear, the theme in Lightyear just hit me so hard because I'm like a recovering perfectionist. And so I was wondering, what did the theme mean to you and how do you handle making mistakes, Taika?
I really beat myself up about mistakes. I've made a whole thing about, putting myself out as like a confident person who's like good at everything. And I am good at pretty much everything I do, but maybe the problem with that is when I do make a mistake, I can't let it go, and I'll that's this kind of stuff that will keep me up at night.
So what was it like for you to say those lines as Mo? Like, it's okay to make mistakes. Like, did you feel it sort of viscerally while you were
Yeah, I mean, I did. Like, there was some stuff in there, and there was obviously with every film, you're doing a lot of different lines that don't make it into the film, but there was a little piece, which was about like just who he was and why he was part of the Space Rangers, and with that character in particular, it was about he was like living at home with his mother, and he was like just wanting to prove to her that he could do something, and that she was encouraging him, but he wanted to really like follow through this time and actually finish something and like see it through to the end for a change. And I think we've all been there, especially myself when I was younger. In my early 20s, I was one of those people. I was like, oh my God, I've just got to finish one project. I start 100 projects, but I never finish any of them. And now it's the opposite. No, I've started 100 projects and I have to finish them all.
Mission failure imminent. In 3.
Grandma always said she believed in you.
2. 1.
There was a big swirly too. Oh, I think I need a bag.
No. Please record your last words.
Do not vomit inside the vehicle. Do not vomit inside the vehicle.
I couldn't help but think how you're here, voicing the bad guy in Lightyear, and your son Josh, is Thanos in the Avengers. Mm-hmm. What do you think it is about the Brolins that make them such good bad guys?
Well, I don't know that I'm such a good bad guy yet. I haven't heard any feedback really yet, and I haven't seen a polished film yet. I've seen the film, but not really finished with all the music and everything. Josh, I've said it before, I wouldn't want to be up against him in a bar fight, because he is a tough guy. And me, I think I am, but I'm not sure if I could pull through like he. He's a Krav Maga expert and jiu-jitsu and all of that stuff. Plus, you've seen his physique for the movie. So anyway, I have a lot to work toward, emanating, my son.
That was so sweet. I love that. Do you guys ever exchange like notes and tips and stuff when it comes to this type of work?
No. I'm. Every once in a while we get in a good conversation, and I will try to give him some wisdom, which he doesn't buy at all. He's his own man, that's for sure.
That's so funny. Did you ever talk to Andrew Stanton, who is an EP on this movie, and he actually voiced Zurg in Toy Story 2, and I was wondering if you guys had any conversations on bringing that voice to life, or how did you sort of make this voice your own?
I walked in not being allowed to know what Zurg really was, other than what little I'd seen and what I asked, and I didn't really even have the dialogue. I didn't have any preparation at all, because they didn't want me to gab about it. Even friends, they didn't want me to tell anything about what I was doing, and even right now, I'm somewhat limited about what I can say about Zurg. But anyway, I go into this recording session, and Angus MacLane, the director, is on a video screen with the writer and the producer and several technical people. And we start to work through the dialogue, and he starts to correct me. And it wasn't really until the second session that I began to correct things from the first session and begin to understand what I was doing.
Well, I can't wait for you to see it, because you are absolutely phenomenal in it. And like when you see it visually, I feel like you're gonna, it's unbelievable.
Really?
Truly. And your voice just really, I don't know, it makes you feel things viscerally. Like I know you narrated Sweet Tooth for Netflix. Mm-hmm. What is it that you, James, like love about voice work?
Well, at least 40, I said 40 years before, but it was 40 tapes, sample tapes that I did for agents to be submitted for whatever voice work. Never got a job all these years.
Wow.
So last year, or a year and a half ago, Robert Downey and Susan Downey call up and say, we want you to narrate our series.
Yeah.
right? Which is the voiceover. I guess it's narration, and I didn't really know what they meant, but because of the shutdown, they brought the studio to my house. They had a screen, a box and I was literally all alone with earphones to Warner Brothers. I could see the dialogue and the guys working with me, and I never left the house that whole last season. So anyway, that started my first job.
Wow.
Of voiceover, and the Pixar guys heard it, and here I am, you know.
And the rest is history. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and it's funny because over the years, I would, I'd get in an elevator and somebody would say, "What floor do you want?" You know how somebody pushes the button for you? And I'd say, "5th floor," and they'd turn around and say, "Well, I thought that sounded like you." So evidently, over the years, I thought, well, there's something recognizable about my voice, not to me, but to other people.
No, it is. It's incredible. I don't know what it must be like for you to wake up to it every day.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I'm so happy that this short journey in voiceover work has brought you to this iconic film, Lightyear.
Yeah.
One of the most famous catchphrases in Pixar is "to infinity and beyond." What does that phrase mean to you? And the theme of this film is so much about moving past mistakes. And you've had such a wonderful, illustrious career. So also, what does "to infinity and beyond" mean to you? And what advice do you have to people to overcome?
Infinity means there is no end, right? So maybe there's, to this franchise, there is infinity and beyond. There is no end, last picture. But this picture is so different than the Toy Stories that it's going to grab it's going to add a whole different audience.
Right.
I believe, and it's another $1 billion picture for them.
Yeah.
And it is a visit to space. Kind of to answer your question, it is a visit to space. It's where they end up is 4.2 million light years away. That's a trip, and it takes a while to get there and back. If you want to come back from it, I would. I'm a pilot now for 50 years, so when I fly, I plan to come right back, and going out into space is not personally my thing, except for a visit, let's say, around the Earth. I'll look-see and then come back home. But 4 years to Mars, not my cup of tea.
And what advice did you have for people to overcome mistakes?
Get to work, go to school, get up there and try and do what you think or know you can't do, because you can burn through anything. And it may hurt. I was the least guy that should have become an actor. I couldn't give a book report. I couldn't stand up in front. I still have trouble, at a microphone with an audience out there. But I went to school, and it was terribly painful, and finally worked through. I didn't die afterwards. I come back next week, I'm still alive. Same horrible feeling happened. I burnt through it. I don't think it matters what you try. You can burn through it and be successful. You think you can't, but don't believe it. And read this book called Psycho-Cybernetics, which talks all about burning through.
I can provide sleep sounds if you like. I have several options. Summer night, ocean paradise, whale calls.
No. White noise is fine.
Very well.
Good night, Socks.
Good night, Buzz.
I love Socks so much. I always love the sort of ancillary Pixar character, but this one's like a little more special, I think.
Right on. Oh, that's nice of you.
I'm sure you feel that way too. Are you ready for like 1 million people to ask you to say beep boop, beep boop, beep boop?
I do it with my kids every day anyways, and so no worries on that.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. Did you go method for this at all, Peter? Like, did you take any characteristics of robots or cats specifically to tap into this voice?
I don't know if it's method, but there's definitely voice keys for me. I remember Frank Oz, the guy who did like Rover and Fozzie. He came to our art school one time and he talked about voice keys. And I had never heard of that, but for every character that he had, there was like a word. Like for Bert and Ernie, he played Ernie? No, he played Bert. And he would say, gray. Gray was the word for him. To get into the voice of Burton, he would go gray, and then he would just talk like that. And it's not, I don't know if that's method, but for Socks, there were these two phrases for me in terms of trying to find, the robot side and then his friendly side. And I was like, the idea of the robot side was not that he was robot, but there was like a military aspect of him that like was want to get the job done, and like he would have these protocols and describing probabilities and stuff that was very like intellectual, sort of like a Spock sort of logic person. And but my key to that was saying yes, Captain. And so before a line, I would just go, yes, Captain. The probability of this thing would be, 38% or whatever. But then for the friend side of it, like I would be tapping into my relationship with my kids or my wife or my brother and or my dog, and just like, there's this like, it was the key was like, hey Buzz. Yeah, so like it would be, hey Buzz, you want a snack cake? And so there would be these two sides that that when you get the pages, because you wouldn't get these pages beforehand, you would get them immediately in front of you, and then you would kind of scour through the lines and trying to play the sides of those two weird keys. I feel like I said too much, but that was the game.
No, I could listen to this all day. That's so fascinating. I love that you shared that with me. And you bring up something really interesting, that there is this duality to Socks. He is like a complex character in a way, where it sounds like you approached him like two different characters, like Bruce Wayne and Batman.
yeah, totally. I never thought about it like that, but yeah. But it was like, I love sci-fi movies where they have these kind of androids that are always like butlers, in space. But then, when Angus first pitched this of like, he's like psychological help for Buzz. Like, wait, what? What the hell happened to Buzz that he would need psychological help? And,
Right.
those early concepts were crazy.
What's so interesting that you bring up that exact thing is when I talked to Angus yesterday and I asked where the inspiration for Socks came from, he was talking about how it came from these toys from the 80s and how like all these kids would, like the jumping dog that we would always see on the ground, either at the mall or at like a flea market. And what I thought was interesting is that you guys started working on Lightyear years ago.
Yeah.
And when you think about what we've all been through in the last couple of years and how now everyone has an emotional support animal, it really is fascinating how that all sort of lined up. Did you do anything to tap into your more compassionate side for that part of Socks?
To tap into it, like I'm a sap, Naz, like there is no tapping in, it's just there. And so for me, usually it's like if, when, there were versions of the movie that were, they put Socks through a lot of things. And I remember the different emotional aspects where Angus would start pitching like, okay, this is this scene. We're like, oh, really? Okay. And then like you would get to this place of like, like, I don't want to say goodbye, or I don't want to do these things. And I don't know if they're easy jumps to like, to try to find it just because I'm a ham.
I love that. I'm the same way. Well, something that wasn't an easy jump was going to space for Socks. It was fun for me to picture like what an actual cat would be like in space, which is just kind of hilarious if you think about it. Did working on this make you want to potentially go to space? Like, do you think you would make a good space ranger? Is that something that interests you?
Look, the child in me would love to be a space ranger, but as much as I've gone to Disneyland, there are some rides that I cannot do over there. Like I get so motion sick on Space Mountain. So if there was any real like trip to space, like I would be like, where's the bathroom? Like I would just be terrible. But once in space, I'm sure that it would be fun. But boy, I would love to, but I know there are limits.
Yeah, that's so funny. You're like Mo on Space Mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
So at Rotten Tomatoes, we're actually hosting this Pixar Showdown right now on our website, where fans get to vote for the #1 Pixar movie. So I wanted to know, aside from Lightyear, which Pixar film do you think should have that top spot?
Have the top spot? Boy.
It's really hard.
I would say the original Toy Story for me. That was the first one. I was in art school when I saw it, and it totally changed my career path, and it made me want to come here. And so that one for me would be #1.
It's so good. Toy Story 2 is #1 for me. But your career at Pixar is so fascinating, Peter. Like you did voice work on Ratatouille. You directed The Good Dinosaur, and I know you're going to be directing Elemental. Yeah. What about the Elemental film made you want to go back to the directing chair?
It all stemmed off of thanking my parents. Honestly, that was there was this party that I went to where they were like you worked at Pixar, let's celebrate you, and I didn't want to do it just because they don't need to celebrate anything like that. And then but at the time my brother was like, you should do it for mom and dad, and I was like, yeah. And then so we brought my parents there, and I remember having this silly speech about like working in cartoons and everything. But when I saw my parents in this crowd, like I got very emotional, and I was just like, my brother and I would not be here if it wasn't for the sacrifices that my mom and dad had made. And so that idea of trying to thank our parents was where this movie sort of has its little seed. And so I've never done anything this personal before. And so if there was anything bringing me to this, that was the North Star. And then from there, all these other relationships in our lives started to fuel it. But that would be the seed, I think.
To infinity.
Are you trying to get me to pull your finger?
Don't fall for it.
No, not like that. Sorry, it's a thing your grandma and I used to do.
Yeah.
I know when people walk out of this, they're gonna just be thinking socks. Like, where did the idea for socks come from? Was it from a pet, from a toy? And is there a reference to a famous 90s White House pet in there?
Oh, yeah, I think that's sort of oblique, but the socks, for legal reasons, I don't think I can discuss which toys it's based on, but I will say that jumping dog that would always jump around.
Poochie?
Is that what it was called?
No, Poochie's a separate toy, but there were several. It's an amalgam of several.
It just sits there and then
80s
it flips
toys.
over.
Yes.
Was that what Poochie did? I was thinking more of the knockoff Poochie. Then I didn't have the fancy real Poochie. Anyway, so we wanted to be a little bit like an amalgam of several toys, and also, for whatever reason in the 80s, there was this big boon for animatronic animals as children's entertainment.
Yeah.
And I never really understood that fascination because it never fooled me. But I always like how hard those robotic animals tried. And so there's something inherently goofy and funny to me about a cat that does not look like a cat. It looks like a cat, but it's not fooling anybody.
Right.
And that's very charming to me. So.
But also, like, how wild after the last couple of years that we've all lived through, where everyone like is getting an emotional support animal. That was like right. Like, wasn't that just so? Don't you just love when it happens? Everything happens like that.
It is kind of crazy.
So bravo to that.
Thank
that was
you.
so
Thank
amazing.
you.
I can't wait for the world to meet socks.
Yeah.
Also, I can't wait for every '90s kid to see this. I'm like such a '90s kid. It's a movie that Andy sees. It makes him want to go buy a Buzz Lightyear toy. What did you guys do to make this movie feel more 90s? And are there any Easter eggs?
For being 90s, I mean, it's
almost a little bit more 80s.
Yeah, I think what we did was just, but no, there's some 90s.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't think we have. I think we just tried to make it an amalgam of that kind of 70s and 80s sci-fi actioneer. To have that sense of fun that we wanted the audience to have. Like I think the word thrill ride is it's an odd thing to say. Often fun is something you say when you don't have something nice to say about a movie. You go, oh, that was fun. But that's what we were going for. We wanted it to be something that had this sense of narrative propulsion that would take the audience on a journey, and they would enjoy it as a group, and then it would be this fun space adventure.
Yeah, no, and I totally got the 80s like sort of sci-fi-ness too. It was more like I just pictured myself with my Sega Genesis going and stuff like that, where I was like, wow, that is so from my childhood.
I think that's just things we think are funny from the age that we are. So
I love it. It was so good. I was also reading that you guys sent some of the Pixar artists to NASA.
Yeah, we went to NASA.
I love the research that goes behind these things. And when we think of the first men that stepped on the moon, we so often think of Neil Armstrong, and no one talks about Buzz Aldrin. And I wanted to know, like, was Buzz a point of inspiration, like, for you guys at all, or for the artists for this Buzz?
Not specifically, no.
But definitely the current batch of astronauts are.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking with Tom Marshburn and his colleagues over at Johnson, it was pretty exceptional. Like, who they are, how they carry themselves, how they look at things, the way they approach problems, their gratitude for the team that gets them up there and keeps them alive. It just, they're really an inspirational bunch of men and women, and that had a huge influence on us.
And they're really good at the press day. I mean, Tom was
Tom was
very
fascinating.
he was used to
Yeah.
reading off a teleprompter. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
It's probably easier to do press when you're not trying to also not bob around.
Yeah, no, that was when it was one thing was neat when we were talking to him on the space station. Is I said, could you turn upside down and just talk to us? Is that weird? He's like, yeah, I can do it, but they don't like us to. I mean, it can be disorienting for the. He was very considerate of us, but he just.
And then he did it.
Then he did it, and so he's like, this
so
doesn't feel any
cool.
different to me, and it's like,
all the same.
yeah, of course, it's weightlessness, but it's funny that there are certain ways we orient to make other people comfortable, which is why we're sitting right side up right now.
Same. I wanted to do this upside down, but they were like,
they
didn't.
right?
No,
It's really
NASA would prefer we didn't do that.
Galyn, you just said something that stuck out to me. You said like it was fascinating to see like how they work as a team at NASA, right? And how these other people get the astronauts ready, and it very much made me love and think of the characters that you guys made for this movie. Like they all work as a team, and as someone who has struggled with perfectionism so much, I never thought, I've always loved Buzz, but I never thought I would ever see myself in Buzz, which like meant so much to me. How did you decide to so beautifully and politely remind everyone that making mistakes is okay?
I think it was aspirational for ourselves. I've always related to Buzz because of his particular specificity and his laser focus on doing the right thing. But Buzz's journey and the spirit of collaboration is actually a very selfishly personal one. Like the time jumps in the movie are a metaphor for making a movie at Pixar. So when we make a movie, I was noticing we'd go 4 or 5 years, and then I would go home, and then everything seemed slightly different. People were a little older, and I was like, this is weird. Wow. And so that kind of time jump is what inspired the movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is your feature film,
directorial
debut at Pixar. I know you've been
5.5 years later, yeah.
And I know you've been there for a long time, so congrats.
Yeah,
That's
thank you very much.
amazing.
Thank you.
And congrats on casting the perfect Buzz.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's talk about Chris for a second. I read that you guys said you wanted someone who had the perfect combination of drama and comedy. What from Chris's body of work were you like, this is our guy?
There's a bunch, I think. I mean, obviously Captain America and doing that man out of time, and the trueness of that, the authenticity that he brought to that was definitely a part of it. But like for me, to be perfectly honest, watching Snowpiercer, there was something about like how if you just even listen to it without watching him, how much he vocally expresses conflict and dilemma and pain that I just was like, oh, this man's got the breath. We need that.
Yeah, I think Snowpiercer was, I agree, that one was really transformative.
That's interesting. We've never talked about that.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that, but
Oh.
I really love that movie. Yeah, but it was interesting how much he embodies the role. Part of it is that you have such an iconic character and you have such an iconic voice in the toy. And when we're making the character from a side character to a main character, there's certain expectations you have. And then, of course, if you're casting a baritone, that limits it tremendously.
Yeah.
But Chris was, we met with Chris and he was such a joy, and we pitched the movie, he totally got it, and it was just wonderful to have that kind of partnership on this film. And it was super fun, because often he was our first audience.
Right.
When we would show him stuff, and he would be really excited about it, and you could kind of see if he was having questions, they're like, okay, well, maybe we need to smooth something out. So.
Yeah. It's so cool. What a great focus group
Yeah,
to
it was
have.
really
Because I know it
cool.
was his dream to be a Disney animator ever since he was
Yeah.
a kid. So it really is just such a total manifestation and bringing together.
And
of-
he brought that enthusiasm to every recording session. He was just like a little kid. It was really hilarious. It was great.
Yeah.
best.
It was really the best.
I have to ask you guys before I leave.
Yeah.
So on RottenTomatoes.com, currently we're having a Pixar showdown where
Uh-huh.
our users get to vote for the #1 Pixar
You
movie.
only get one Pixar movie?
So it's sort of bracket style.
Oh, yeah,
so
okay.
aside from Lightyear, of course,
We can't
which
vote for our own movie.
I have to say is my favorite currently.
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
not
Well,
just
thank
saying
you.
that
That's
because
very
I'm like
sweet.
sitting
Thank you.
across from you.
That's
Like,
unbelievable.
Sure. No, I promise. Aside from Lightyear,
What's your favorite movie?
what is the number? Well, who should have the top spot? Pixar movie.
It's so hard.
It is so hard.
Well,
There's elements of, but go ahead.
Well, I've only ever seen one Pixar movie as an audience member.
Oh, wow.
Only
Oh,
Toy
that's
Story.
true.
And so it's really hard for me to see it as a movie.
Right.
And so I didn't work on Inside Out, and I was able to see that one fresher than most. So that one means a lot to me because I could experience it. But in general, Incredibles was probably, as an individual contributor, the one I had maybe the most fun on, and I worked on that for 3.5 years, but we're getting the hook. What about you? What do you think? What's your favorite Pixar movie? Say Ratatouille.
It might be Ratatouille.
Ratatouille is really, really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
I'm a sucker for visuals, and I just think it's
Ratatouille is really sumptuous.
It's just beautiful, and I think we try to actually we talked a lot about Ratatouille and what we liked visually about Ratatouille and what we could bring into this film in terms of that stitched together cohesive look of Ratatouille that we were trying to capture here. So very inspirational for us. But